Donald Trump. The full story from the very beginning to right now in 2026. Donald John Trump is one of the most consequential, controversial, and polarizing figures in the entire history of American politics. No other individual in modern times has so thoroughly divided a nation, reshaped a political party, tested the limits of democratic institutions, and dominated global headlines for as long and as consistently as he has. His story is not simply the story of a politician. It is the story of a cultural phenomenon, a business empire, a legal saga, and a presidency, twice over, that has fundamentally altered the landscape of American democracy and international relations. Early life and the making of a brand. Donald Trump was born on June 14, 1946, in Queens, New York City, the fourth of 5 children born to Frederick Christ Trump and Mary Ann McLeod Trump. His father Fred was a successful real estate developer who built and managed affordable housing in the outer boroughs of New York City, and it was from his father that Donald first absorbed the fundamentals of the real estate business. He attended the Wharton School of Finance at the University of Pennsylvania, graduating in 1968 with a degree in economics. Upon graduating, Trump joined his father's real estate company and quickly demonstrated both an appetite for risk and a gift for self-promotion that far exceeded anything his father had practiced. While Fred Trump operated quietly and methodically in the outer boroughs, Donald Trump set his sights on Manhattan, the most competitive real estate market in the world. His first major success came with the renovation of the Commodore Hotel near Grand Central Terminal in the mid-1970s. A project that he completed in partnership with Hyatt Corporation and that was rebranded as the Grand Hyatt New York. It was a genuinely impressive achievement that established Trump as a developer capable of executing large and complicated projects in difficult market conditions. Through the 1980s, Trump expanded his brand aggressively. Trump Tower on Fifth Avenue, completed in 1983, became both a commercial success and a personal statement, a gleaming monument to Trump's self-image as the ultimate symbol of New York luxury. He expanded into Atlantic City casinos, purchased the Plaza Hotel, bought an airline, and launched Trump, The Art of the Deal in 1987, which became one of the best-selling business books of the decade and cemented his public image as a brilliant and fearless dealmaker. But the reality was considerably more complicated. By the early 1990s, Trump's casino empire in Atlantic City was collapsing under the weight of excessive debt, and Trump himself faced personal bankruptcy. He restructured his debts, gave up significant equity in his properties, and survived. But the decade of excess had exposed the limits of his business acumen. His companies would file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection 6 times between 1991 and 2009. Despite these failures, Trump maintained his public profile and his brand with remarkable tenacity, continuing to license the Trump name to projects around the world even as his direct business operations struggled. The late 1990s and early 2000s saw Trump reinvent himself as a television personality. The Apprentice, which premiered on NBC in January 2004, introduced Trump to an entirely new generation of Americans who knew him not as a real estate developer but as the decisive, all-powerful boardroom boss who delivered the phrase "you're fired" with maximum theatrical impact. The show ran for 14 seasons and was a genuine cultural phenomenon, doing more to shape Trump's public image than almost anything that had come before it. It was television, not business success, that truly made Donald Trump a household name across all demographics and all corners of America. The political rise, 2015, and the candidacy nobody took seriously. Donald Trump had flirted with presidential politics on multiple occasions before 2016, including a brief exploratory campaign in 2000 on the Reform Party ticket. But his announcement in June 2015 that he was entering the Republican presidential primary was initially greeted with widespread skepticism and barely concealed amusement from the political establishment of both parties. What followed was one of the most stunning political ascents in American history. Trump ran a campaign that was deliberately unconventional, deliberately provocative, and deliberately contemptuous of every norm and protocol that had previously governed presidential politics. He attacked his Republican opponents with personal insults and nicknames. He called Mexican immigrants criminals and rapists. He proposed a complete ban on Muslim immigration to the United States. He questioned whether Senator John McCain, a decorated Vietnam War prisoner of war, was truly a war hero. In the conventional political playbook, each of these statements should have been a fatal blow to a campaign. Instead, each one generated enormous media coverage, energized a significant segment of the Republican base that felt abandoned and disrespected by the political establishment, and propelled Trump further ahead in the polls. Trump won the Republican nomination in the summer of 2016 in what remained a genuinely shocking outcome to most mainstream political observers. In November 2016, he defeated Democratic nominee Hillary Clinton in the Electoral College despite losing the popular vote by nearly 3 million ballots. He carried Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, all states that had voted Democratic in presidential elections for decades, in a result that stunned much of the political world and sent shockwaves through international capitals from London to Beijing to Brussels. The first term, 2017 to 2021, Trump's first presidency was characterized by an extraordinary level of turbulence, controversy, and norm-breaking that had no modern precedent in American political history. He signed major legislation including the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017, which substantially reduced corporate tax rates and individual income taxes for higher earners. He made 3 appointments to the Supreme Court: Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Barrett, fundamentally shifting the ideological composition of the court in a conservative direction for a generation to come. On immigration, his administration implemented a family separation policy at the southern border that drew widespread condemnation, including from many within his own party. His attempt to implement a travel ban affecting several majority Muslim countries was struck down in its initial forms before a revised version was upheld by the Supreme Court. He withdrew the United States from the Paris Climate Agreement, from the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and from the Iran nuclear deal that the Obama administration had negotiated. His presidency was defined by 2 impeachments. The first, in December 2019, related to his administration's withholding of military aid to Ukraine in connection with requests that Ukrainian officials investigate his political rival Joe Biden. Trump was acquitted by the Republican-controlled Senate. The second impeachment came in January 2021, following the events of January 6th. The January 6, 2021 attack on the United States Capitol was the most dramatic and consequential event of Trump's first presidency. Following his defeat in the November 2020 presidential election, a loss that was certified by all 50 states, upheld by the courts in dozens of legal challenges, and confirmed by Trump's own attorney general and election security officials, Trump refused to concede and promoted the false claim that the election had been stolen through widespread fraud. On January 6th, a rally he addressed in Washington, D.C., preceded an attack by a mob of his supporters on the Capitol building, which interrupted the certification of the Electoral College results and resulted in 5 deaths and extensive property damage. During the deadly January 6, 2021 riot at the U.S. Capitol, which attempted to prevent and did delay Congress's certification of the election, Trump told the rioters, "We love you." He was impeached a second time by the House for incitement of insurrection but was again acquitted by the Senate. Wikipedia. The Wilderness Years, 2021 to 2024. After leaving office on January 20, 2021, Trump remained the dominant figure in the Republican Party, a reality that distinguished him from almost every other former president in American history. He continued to hold rallies, endorsed candidates in Republican primaries across the country, and maintained a grip on the party's base that no potential challenger came close to breaking. His legal problems multiplied dramatically during this period. He faced federal indictments related to his handling of classified documents at his Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida, related to his efforts to overturn the 2020 election results, and faced a state-level prosecution in Georgia on related grounds. Trump faced criminal charges in Georgia State Court in 2022, for his role in the submission of a fraudulent slate of presidential electors to the United States Congress and for making false statements about illegal voting in a call with Georgia's top elections official. He was also found liable in civil court for sexual abuse against writer E. Jean Carroll and ordered to pay substantial damages. Wikipedia. Despite, or perhaps in part because of, these legal challenges, Trump announced his 2024 presidential candidacy in November 2022, becoming the first major presidential candidate in American history to be actively facing criminal indictments while running for the nation's highest office. The 2024 election and return to power. Trump secured the 2024 Republican nomination with relative ease, defeating a field that included Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley. He chose Ohio Senator J.D. Vance as his running mate. In November 2024, he defeated Democratic candidate Vice President Kamala Harris, who had replaced President Biden on the ticket after Biden announced he would not seek re-election, winning both the Electoral College and the popular vote. This made Trump the second president in American history after Grover Cleveland to win non-consecutive terms. President Donald Trump was inaugurated for his second term as the 47th President of the United States on January 20, 2025, serving with Vice President J.D. Vance, a former senator from Ohio. At 78 years and 220 days old at the time of his second inauguration, Trump was the oldest person ever inaugurated to the presidency. Wikipedia: The Energy Mix. The second term, 2025 to 2026. On January 20, 2025, Donald Trump was sworn in for his second non-consecutive term as President of the United States, pledging to restore the country to a golden age. Trump promised to restore economic strength, tighten immigration enforcement, and challenge political institutions. Core insights. The second term began with an extraordinary blizzard of executive action. As of April 2, 2026, President Donald Trump had signed 254 executive orders, 59 memoranda, and 136 proclamations in his second presidential term. Among the very first actions of the new administration was the pardoning of individuals convicted in connection with the January 6 Capitol attack, the reversal of numerous Biden administration policies on immigration and energy, and the launch of the Department of Government Efficiency, known as DOGE, under the initial leadership of tech billionaire Elon Musk, which oversaw sweeping and deeply controversial cuts to the federal workforce and federal agencies. Trade policy dominated Trump's economic agenda. His administration imposed sweeping tariffs under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, sparking a global trade war. Tariffs of up to 145% were imposed on Chinese goods, with retaliatory tariffs from China reaching 125% on American exports. The resulting trade war created significant economic disruption and generated substantial legal challenges. On February 20, 2026, the Supreme Court decided that the IEEPA did not authorize the president to impose tariffs. All tariffs imposed under IEEPA were struck down. Following this ruling, on May 12, the United States and China announced that tariffs would be reduced for a period of 90 days. Tariffs on Chinese goods reduced from 145% to 30% and Chinese tariffs on U.S. goods from 125% to 10%. Press TV Plus 2. Domestically, Trump signed the One Big Beautiful Bill Act in July 2025, a sweeping tax law that introduced provisions including no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and an enhanced deduction for seniors. Press TV. On the international stage, Trump's administration increased support for Israel in the Gaza war, struck Houthi targets in Yemen, and aided Israel in the June 2025 12-day war, during which he carried out strikes on Iranian nuclear sites. In early October 2025, Trump's plan for a Gaza ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas was signed. Perf. The most dramatic and consequential foreign policy event of the second term came in February 2026. The U.S.-Israeli war on Iran, launched on February 28, 2026, became the defining crisis of Trump's presidency. The administration justified the strikes as a preemptive response to Iran's missile capabilities and nuclear ambitions. Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei was killed in the opening salvo, and the conflict escalated across the Middle East, with retaliatory strikes hitting targets in Israel, Lebanon, and the Gulf region. The war sparked a surge in global oil prices. Press TV. Trump also authorized a series of strikes on suspected drug traffickers in the Caribbean Sea and subsequently ordered a military operation to capture Nicolas Maduro, the disputed president of Venezuela. Perf. On climate and international organizations, on January 7, 2026, Trump announced that the United States would be withdrawing from the 1992 United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, the UN's Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, and 65 other international organizations. Perf. In 2025, the president consolidated executive authority by pushing the boundaries of the law, usurped powers traditionally left to Congress, the courts, and the states, launched a sweeping purge of America's professional bureaucracy and replaced career civil servants with political appointees personally loyal to the president. Countercurrents. Looking ahead, success in the 2026 midterm elections is critical for both parties. Currently, Republicans have control of the House. If the Democrats win at least one chamber of Congress, it would place a check on the president. Questions about a potential third term continue to swirl despite the clear constitutional prohibition, with Trump himself making characteristically inconsistent statements on the subject, sometimes floating the idea, sometimes dismissing it, always ensuring the conversation stays alive and focused on him. Core insights. Donald Trump at 79 years old remains, by virtually every measure, the most dominant figure in American politics. Whether one views him as a disruptive reformer who broke the stranglehold of a failed political establishment, or as a threat to democratic norms and institutions that took generations to build, and reasonable people hold both views with genuine conviction, what cannot be denied is that the story of Donald Trump is still very much being written. And the next chapter, whatever it brings, will almost certainly be as extraordinary as everything that has come before.